he was so knowledgeable amongst the sahabah that he was the only companion from the Prophet ﷺ said that I am knowledge and Ali is the door of knowledge. That Ali radiallahu anhu is the door of knowledge. Now, unfortunately, we don't talk about Ali radiallahu anhu and Ahlul Bayt as much as because I don't know why we don't. We should be talking more about them. We've just left this for the Shia community. But they are very prestigious and they're very well respected. And Ali radiallahu anhu has incredible influences on Islamic history. Arguably, he's the most influential individual. If you were just to take his influence above the Sunnis and the Shias and what transpires from the different branches, he's arguably one of the most influential people after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Though Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and Umar radiallahu anhu are greater in merit, and that is the belief of majority of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. If someone doesn't believe this, doesn't mean they're not Muslim, but majority of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah believes that Tafdīlu Shaykhain, that Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhu are the most superior of the companions after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wa hubbul khatanain, and we love the two son-in-laws. The son-in-laws are, who are the two son-in-laws? Uthman radiallahu anhu and Ali radiallahu anhu. But Ali radiallahu anhu's influence is remarkable. And even beyond the majority of things we see as influence, if you're familiar with tasawwuf or the Sufi movements, almost every chain of tasawwuf goes back through Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, and gets into Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Ali radiallahu anhu is the dispatcher of many of the concepts of tasawwuf. So he has great influences. So let's go through some of his advices. So there's this person by the name of Kumail ibn Ziyad. And Kumail ibn Ziyad, Ali radiallahu anhu tells him that Kumail, إِنَّ هَذِهِ الْقُلُوبَ أَوْعِيَةٌ وَخَيْرُهَا أَوْعَاهَا لِلْعِلْمِ احفظ عني ما أقول لك الناس ثلاثة. He says, O Kumail, understand that these hearts are containers. They contain things inside them. And the best thing that they can contain inside them is knowledge. Remember what I'm about to tell you. There are three types of people. Remember what I'm about to tell you. There are three types of people. Number one, عالم رباني ومتعلم على سبيل النجاة وهمج رعاء أتباع كل ناعق يميلون مع كل ريح لم يستضيئوا بنور العلم ولم يلجأوا إلى ركن وثيق. He says, there is one person, he is the devout scholar. He is the one who has learned and is also obedient and worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two is that student of knowledge who is studying so that he can be saved in the hereafter. So in A, you're either a scholar. B, you're learning on the journey towards knowledge and you're protecting yourself. He said the third person is the person who is lost. He said the third person is the person who is just following their desires and following their whims, and they're just looking for the next craze, the next hype. They're just looking for the moment. They're just trying to find happiness and trying to find relevancy. So he says there's these three types of people, and it's just common sense which type you want to be. Then he says, O Kumail, al-ilmu khayrun min al-mali. Knowledge is better than wealth. Al-ilmu khayrun min al-mali. Al-ilmu yahrusuka wa anta tahrusu al-mal. He said, knowledge guards you while you must guard knowledge. Knowledge protects you while you must protect wealth. Knowledge guards you, you guard wealth. Al-malu yunqisuhu an-nafaqa wal-ilmu yazku ala al-infaqi. He says, wealth, the more you use it, the more it decreases. Knowledge, the more you use it, the more it increases. Ya Kumail, muhabbatul alimi dinun yudanu tuksibuhu at-ta'a fi hayatihi. He says that loving scholars is part of the deen, and it is something that is desired. And by people having muhabba for the ulama, they begin to have love for obedience and start obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala far more. And then he says, وَجَمِيلُ الْأُحُودَثَةِ بَعْدَ وَفَاتِهِ. He says that one of the good things about a scholar is that in his life, people follow them and they do more obedience to Allah. But after they pass away, all the good that they did becomes manifest and exposed. وَمَنْفَعَةُ الْمَالِ تَزُولُ بِزَوَالِهِ. And wealth is only beneficial as long as you possess it. الْعِلْمُ حَاكِمٌ وَالْمَالُ مَحْكُومٌ عَلَيْهِ. Knowledge rules and wealth is something that is ruled upon. Meaning that if you have knowledge, you rule. Knowledge turns slaves into kings. But wealth makes you a servant. To earn wealth, we become servants for hours and days and weeks. Wealth makes you a servant, while knowledge makes you a king. Ya Kumail, mata khuzanul mal wahum ahya. He says, O Kumail, remember that many people who guarded wealth have died, and look, the wealth is still existent. وَالْعُلَمَاء بَاقُونَ مَا بَقِيَ الدَّهَرِ. Scholars have died, but their knowledge exists. We talk about Ghazali, and we talk about Rumi, and we talk about this Sahabi and that Sahabi. They passed away centuries ago. They never made an attempt to live forever, but their names have adopted eternity, and they are living forever. أعيانهم مفقودة وأمثالهم في القلوب موجودة. If I wish you understood Arabic, because like the eloquence of Ali radiallahu anhu's words and the choice of his words that he's using is just so powerful. أعيانهم مفقودة. Their bodies are missing, however their memories are echoing in the hearts of people. That these scholars, they pass away, they go on, but the legacies they leave behind remain in the hearts of people. What are we doing if not talking about a great person who lived? You think Ali radiallahu anhu ever thought that people are going to talk about him and write books about him? He just vibed. He just did his thing. But he lived a life worth living. He did a life worth living. And we're sitting here now reading about that life and hoping that we can be part and parcel of it. There's a poem, the poet says, وَكَنْزٌ لَا تَخَافُ عَلَيْهِ لِصًّا. You want to know about such wealth that there is no fear of it ever getting stolen. خَفِيفُ الْحِمْلِ يُوجَدْ حَيْثُ كُنْتَ. It's very light, you can summon it wherever you are. يَزِيدُ بِكَثْرَةِ الْإِنفَاقِ مِنْهُ. The more you use it, the more it grows. وَيَنْقُصُ إِنْ بِهِ كَفًّا شَدَةً. And if you stop using it, then it decreases. He says that is knowledge. It is a treasure that cannot be robbed. It is light, but you can carry it anywhere. The more you spend of your knowledge, the more you use it, the more it grows. And the less you use your knowledge, the more it evaporates. He goes on and he says in his other advice, he says, حَدِّثُ النَّاسِ بِمَا يَعْرِفُونَ أَتُحِبُّونَ أَن يُكَذَّبَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. He says, when you tell people stories or ahadith, tell them from the ahadith that are well known and the stories that are well known. Don't go pick up some random thing or some like obscure incident. He says, do you want people to start doubting what Allah and His Messenger have said? And this is an etiquette. You know, when we're sharing stuff online and we're telling other people about Quran and hadith, use ahadith and verses that are like reputable and interpretations that are reputable. Don't go around and just pass things that you don't know if it's true or not. You know, there was this one narration. You've probably heard about it. That there was a person who brought grapes, and then the Prophet ﷺ ate all the grapes. And the Sahabi goes to the Prophet ﷺ and said, Ya Rasulullah, you ate all the grapes. And you know, I wanted to have some too. And the Prophet said, oh no, the grapes were bitter. And I didn't want you to have the bitter grapes, so I ate all the grapes. How many of y'all heard of this before? Fake. Never happened. You think the Prophet was sitting there just eating grapes? He had nothing better to do. The Prophet just could have said, hey, they're bitter. Make juice out of it. Come on, man. It's like Rasulullah never did that. Now, people say these stories, why? They sound really, they're nice. But no, knowledge is a responsibility. And you know, when there is a tsunami of knowledge, two problems happen. A, there's a drought of action. No one acts anymore. So everyone learns and knows, But you can come in here week after week, day after day, and you walk out with the exact same amount of worship. Your Quran doesn't increase, your prayer doesn't increase, your dua doesn't increase, nothing increases. There's no value to that. There's no value to a gathering of thousands of people if after that, people's lives don't change. Number one. Number two, when there is a flood of knowledge, then there's also a flood of misinformation and flood of wrong information. You see, there's something called ijtihad. Y'all know what ijtihad is? Can someone tell me what ijtihad is? Sure, struggle, but like what is it, like in its technical term? It's a technical term, ijtihad. Okay, so y'all know how y'all can't just go shopping for fiqh ruling? Like take a little from Hanafi, take a little from Shafi, take a little from Maliki, take a little from Hanbali, right? Maybe you're like, I already do that anyway, I don't know. But you're not supposed to go fatwa shopping, right? You're supposed to stick to one madhab. And the ability to look at the Quran and Hadith and then select which ruling is more correct to follow is called ijtihad. And there are many mujtahids in the past, but four famous ones is the ones we mention all the time. What are the four famous ones we mention? Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad. So these are the four famous ones. Were there only four? No, there were thousands before. Were there ones before them? There were mujtahids before them. Were there mujtahids after them? There were mujtahids after them too. But these four became the popular ones. Now, are we allowed to do ijtihad? Can I just open up Quran and Hadith and start looking at the rulings and say, well, I follow this or I don't follow this? Can I do that? No. Why? We don't have the knowledge. So the scholars, you see, the scholars, they can do a level of ijtihad. But your ijtihad as a layman and a laywoman is to be able to select the right scholar to study and the right passages of knowledge. That's your ijtihad. After you do that ijtihad, then you take what is granted. But up until there, where to source your knowledge, that is on your shoulders. That is your ijtihad. Which tunnels or which fountains of knowledge you will benefit from. Anyhow, continuing. In another of his wasiyas, advices, he says, قال يعزي رجلا في ابنه, a person passed, one of his kids, one person's child passed away. So he says, إنك إن صبرت جراء إنك إن صبرت جرى عليك القدر وأنت مأجور وإن جزعت جرى عليك القدر وأنت مأزور. He says, the guy's son passes away, and he says, listen, man, if you have patience, the decree of Allah is going to happen anyway, but you'll get rewarded. If you don't have patience, the decree of Allah is going to happen regardless, and you'll be punished. He said, you're in a problem right now. You have two choices. Be patient, because what's going to happen is already going to happen, whether you're patient or impatient. If you're patient, you're rewarded. If you're impatient, you're punished. يا للعلم والحكمة كم نحن محتاجون لمثل هذا الفقه العملي عند وقوع المصائب فما منا إلا ويبتلى بمصيبة تحزنه. There's none of us in this room but has a problem that really makes us sad. Either it's a death of a friend, it's a problem, whatever it may be. We all have something that troubles us. Then he talks about a story. He says, أن رجلا كتب إلى أخ له فجع بوفاة ولده قائلا. He said to a person whose child passed away, he said, إنما يستوجب على الله وعده من صبر لله بحقه فلا تجمع إلى ما أصبت به من المصيبة الفجيعة بالأجر فإنها أعظم المصيبتين عليك والسلام. This is powerful too. Think about your biggest difficulty and the thing that is like, that hurts you the most, right? The musibah you're in, right? He says, listen, man, you're in a problem. In this problem, if you don't have patience, then you become far from Allah, and now you're sitting with another problem. And this new problem is bigger than the problem you're already in. Okay, let me say that again. He says, you're in a problem. Someone passes away. Something happens. He says, that's a problem. But you not having patience in that problem results in such distance from Allah and anger from Allah that now you have a newer problem. And that new problem of being distant from Allah is greater than the problem you're already in. You guys get that or went over your heads? Yes or no? Yes. Got it. Part 2. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, إِنَّ النِّعْمَةَ مُوَصَّلَةً بِالشُّكْرِ وَالشُّكْرُ مُعَلَّقٌ بِالْمَزِيدِ وَهُمَا مَقْرُونَانِ فِي قَرْنٍ فَلَنْ يَنْقَطِعَ الْمَزِيدُ مِنَ اللَّهِ حَتَّى يَنْقَطِعَ الشُّكْرُ مِنَ الْعَبْدِ. He says blessings are connected to gratitude, and gratitude is connected to more blessings. So the chain goes like this. Blessings is connected to gratitude. The more gratitude, the more blessings. And the more gratitude you have, it increases blessings, which results in gratitude. And he says this is the cycle. He says as long as you are grateful, Allah will give you more. Allah says in the Quran, وَإِذْ تَأَذَّنَ رَبُّكُمْ لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ وَلَإِن كَفَرْتُمْ إِنَّ عَذَابِي لَشَدِيدٌ. Surah Ibrahim, verse 7. Allah has announced, if you are grateful, I will give you more. If you are ungrateful, know that my punishment is severe. Moving on, his other advice is, Man lanat kalimatuhu wajabat mahabbatuhu. Whoever's words are soft, automatically love of that person starts to enter into your heart of them. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Musa alayhi salam to go and give da'wah to Fir'aun, what did Allah tell Musa alayhi salam? Anyone remember what advice Allah gave Musa alayhi salam? فَقُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. Allah said, Musa, be gentle with him. He said some terrible things, but be gentle. He's arrogant, be gentle. You're like, whoa. So one time, Harun al-Rashid was Khalifah. And one of the scholars just ripped at him and went off, just popped off. And Harun al-Rashid listened. And he's like, hey, stop for a second. He said, first of all, I'm not worse than Fir'aun, and you're not better than Musa. And Allah told Musa to speak nicely to Fir'aun. He said, I'm not worse than Fir'aun, so I don't deserve this, and you're not better than Musa, so you don't get to say this to me. So, man lanat kalimatuhu wajabat mahabbatuhu. Choose gentleness in your words. In the Arabic language, how do you say word? In Urdu or Arabic, how do you say word? Alfaz, very good. Alfaz, the singular is? Lafz. What does lafadha mean? What does lafadha mean? It's an Arabic word. Lafz is an Arabic word. Lafadha means to throw something. When you're throwing something, you're throwing it in one of few ways. Either you know that the person in front of you can catch it, so you can throw it really fast. Or you know they can't catch, so you wobble it. Or you don't know. In that case, you're still careful, because you don't know if the person can catch or they're going to miss. And that's how our words are. Our words are like things we throw at people. Those who can absorb it, we can be more straightforward with them. Those who can't, we can be a bit mellow with them. And those who we don't know, always take gentleness. Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanvi rahmatullah alayhi mentioned in one place, he said, be like silk, gentle in the hands of others, but firm. Say what you have to say, what's right, but be gentle in the hands of others. Are you guys following along, or is this like, yes? Huh?
I'm catching what you're saying.
You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ فَاعْفُ عَنْهُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. He said, be gentle with the Sahaba. If you weren't gentle, they would have abandoned you. And ignore their shortcomings and consult them. It's a good reminder that for us to be as gentle with our words as possible. He continues and he says, حِلْمُكَ عَلَى السَّفِي يُكَثِّرُ أَنصَارَكَ عَلَيْهِ. Dude, this guy's, he's known as being one of the most wisest of the companions. He says your patience and your showing grace to idiots and people who are haters will make more supporters for you. You know when people are haters of you and they say negative things and bad things? He says, be patient, don't react. Respond, don't react. What will this do? يُكَثِّرُ, it will make more people your friends. More people will be on your side than that individual. In the beginning, that person's words or opinions might get somewhere. But after a while, no. The truth manifests. It comes out. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make other people your supporters and other people your friends. حِلْمُكَ عَلَى I wish you guys knew Arabic. حِلْمُكَ عَلَى السَّفِي. Your patience with an idiot, يُكَثِّرُ أَنصَارَكَ عَلَيْهِ, will make more supporters of yours against them. This is another poem. I like this one. This one's nice. يُخَاطِبُنِي السَّفِيهُ بِكُلِّ قُبَحٍ. This idiot or stupid person, I'm not putting on one of you guys, I'm just in that direction. This person, Safi is be'khuf, ullu, idiot, stupid, all of those things, right? This toxic person. This toxic person addresses me with all their negativity. فَأَكْرَهُ أَنْ أَكُونَ لَهُ مُجِيبًا. I dislike that I respond to them. يَزِيدُ سَفَاهَةً وَأَزِيدُ حِلْمًا. His stupidity keeps on growing, and my patience and my grace and compassion and integrity keeps on growing. كَعُودٍ زَادَهُ الْإِحْرَاقُ طِيبًا. I am like that piece of oud, or that wood, that the more you burn the wood, the more fragrance comes out of it. إِدَرْ آ سِتَمْگَر هُنَر آزمائے, إِدَرْ آ سِتَمْگَر هُنَر آزمائے, تو تیر آزما ہم جگر آزمائے. Now you understand the poem. The poet says that let us test our mights. You keep on shooting your arrows against my integrity, and I will keep on showing you how patient and how forbearing I am. The other advice he gives is al-mushawaratu hisnun minan nadama wa amnun anil malama. A lot of these are rhyming, so you miss out half of the enjoyment by not knowing the Arabic language. He says consulting, mashwara, mushawara is very important in Sunnah. Make sure you always do mashwara. Mashwara is very important. He says mashwara is a citadel or a fort against regret. Mashwara, consulting, is defense against regret. Wa amnun anil malama, and it's protection against nadama. Is so the difference between nadama and malama. Nadama is like regret. Malama is like when you blame yourself, when you start telling yourself that that why did I do this way. So he says when you consult other people, you will protect yourself from two things. Number one, regret, and number two, blaming yourself for the mistakes, because you've taken other people's advice. And Allah puts barakah when you take advice. And remember, from the etiquettes of mashwara is that there is no mashwara before mashwara, and there is no mashwara after mashwara. Meaning that before you sit to get the advice and the consultation, you don't lobby it before, and you don't lobby for the decision to get changed after. Whatever the mashwara is made in the gathering, the mashwara is made, and you should just move forward with the mashwara and do tawakkul and trust upon Allah. Part 3. This is the last part of his advices, inshallah. We'll do a few from here. Ali radiallahu anhu says, خُذُوا مِنِّي هَذِهِ الْكَلِمَاتِ الْخَمْسِ. Take from me these 5 words. فَإِنَّكُمْ وَاللَّهِ لَوْ رَكِبْتُمُ الْمَطِيَّ حَتَّى تُنْصِبُوهَا مَا أَدْرَكْتُ مِثْلَهُنَّ. He said, Wallahi, if you travel the world, you won't find advices like these 5 that I'm about to tell you. Number 1, لا يرجون عبد إلا ربه. No person should desire anything but their Creator. ولا يخافن إلا ذنبه. And nothing should scare you, and you shouldn't be frightened of anything but your sins. ولا يستحي إذا سئل عما لا يعلم أن يقول لا أعلم. And you should never be embarrassed if you are asked something that you don't know, that you say, I don't know. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi was a great scholar in Medina Munawwara. One man traveled 6 months to go see Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi in Medina. His people, back in the day, if they didn't just text the sheikh. People didn't have Imam Malik's phone number. They would write a letter, they would have a bunch of questions, they would travel 6 months, they would sit, they would learn, they'd go back to their people and they'd tell them the answers. That was how Google worked back in the day. Nowadays, it's someone asks the sheikh a question, Sheikh, what's this? But I think this is the answer. But I asked that sheikh, and I asked this person and that person, and why are you asking me? Okay. So now, he goes on and he says, he travels for 6 months and he arrives and he sits by Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi and he asks him, he has 60 questions. Asks him the first question. Imam Malik says, La adri, I don't know. Second one, La adri, I don't know. Third, 10th, 20th, 30th, 40th, 50th, 60. All 60 questions, every one. Imam Malik's like, La adri, I don't know. And the man said, I travel 6 months journey to come and ask you this question. What will I tell my people? He said, فَقُلْ لَهُمْ أَنَّ مَالِكًا لَا يَدْرِي. Let them know that Malik doesn't know. Tell them that the only thing that I can send from here is that Malik doesn't know the answer. And it's important for us to be able to say, I don't know. وَلَا يَسْتَحِي أَن يَتَعَلَّمَ إِذَا لَمْ يَعْلَمْ. And if you don't know, don't be embarrassed to seek and learn. وَإِنَّ الصَّبْرَ مِنَ الْإِيمَانِ بِمَنْزِلَةِ الرَّأْسِ مِنَ الْجَسَدِ. And the example of patience to your faith is like the head to the body. لَا خَيْرَ فِي جَسَدٍ لَا رَأْسَ لَهُ. There is no benefit for a body that has no head to it. There's a lot to unpack in this. Maybe one day we'll do like a Jummah khutbah out of this. But in the essence of time, we're going to skip the details of it and just go over about two or three more advices of his. إن الحق والباطل لا يعرفان بأقدار الرجال وبأعمال الظن. اعرف الحق تعرف أهله واعرف الباطل تعرف أهله. He's just dropping gems upon gems. This one, take a deep breath, hear it, and remember it through your entire life. Allama Abdul Hayy Laknawi rahmatullahi alayhi summarizes this whole advice into one line in his book Naf'ul Mufti Wasim. He says, يُعْرَفُ الرِّجَالِ بِالْحَقِّ وَلَا الْحَقِّ بِالرِّجَالِ. He says that we understand that if somebody is correct based on if they're acting on the truth, not that just because so and so did it, it is correct. No scholar's actions make something correct. Just because someone does something doesn't make it appropriate. We saw this sheikh do it. We saw this sheikh eat it. Oh, we went to ISRA and we saw this being served over there. We went over there and we saw this. That doesn't make it okay. And I've told you this story tons of time before. When I was visiting Darul Zakaria with my teacher Mufti Wasim Khan, one time my beard was cut very short. And I had already graduated. So I was visiting and one of the kids goes to me, he's like, hey, your beard's short. And I was like, well, go ask Mufti Taqi, his is too. I just said it because I just said something to say something. After I left, my teacher Mufti Wasim, at that time he was alive, he saw me walking and he called me. And he said, I heard that you made a comment. And immediately I was like, oh, I shouldn't have said something in my own alma mater, in my own institute. I shouldn't have said something. My teachers are still here. It was disrespectful. So I said, Mufti Sahib, forgive me, my mistake. I shouldn't have said anything. He's like, I don't care what you said. He said, I'm upset at the weakness of your evidence. He said, you're a scholar and you don't know that a scholar is not evidence? You don't know about this? That their words aren't that their actions aren't evidence? It's their words, what is right, what is wrong. That's what matters. He said, just because a scholar does an action, does it make it okay? He said it's dependent upon what is the truth. And that's what Ali radiallahu anhu is saying. He's saying, إِنَّ الْحَقِّ وَالْبَاطِلِ لَا يُعْرِفَانِ بِإِقْدَارِ الرَّجُلِ. What is right and wrong isn't understood by does X do it or does Y do it, therefore it's right. No. He says understand what is right. Understand what is wrong. And if someone is doing this, they're on the right path. If someone is doing this, they're on the right path. They're on the wrong path. But don't develop a cultish mindset. Don't become a cult. Yeah, this is for the muftis. He says, Al-faqih man lam yuqannit an-nas min rahmatillahi ta'ala. He says the mufti is the one that doesn't let people lose hope in the mercy of Allah. وَلَمْ يُرَخِّصْ لَهُمْ فِي مَعَاصِ اللَّهِ. But also doesn't open the doors of the disobedience of Allah to them. He says the mufti is not so strict that people think that the mercy of Allah is closed. And the scholar also doesn't open the doors so wide that he opens the doors for sins. You have to strike the balance in between. Let people understand and acknowledge and be appreciative of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but at the same time, don't open the doors of sin. Don't make them comfortable enough to sin. And again, this is a problem that we see, that we mellow Islam so much that it opens the doors to sins, and we should be cognizant of it, because at the end of the day, our allegiance lies to Allah. He says, أَخَافُ عَلَيْكُمْ إِثْنَيْنِ. I fear two things upon you. اتِّبَاعَ الْهَوَى, following your desires, وَطُولُ الْأَمْلِ, and having long hope. فَإِنَّ اتِّبَاعَ الْهَوَى يَصُدُّ عَنِ الْحَقِّ. If a person constantly follows their desires, it will prevent them from truth. And having وَطُولُ الْأَمَلِ, and having long hopes, makes a person forget the akhirah, yunsil akhirah. The more you have amal is like, where you feel like, I have time. I have a long time. I'm still young. It's not my time yet. I'll change later on. He says this makes a person forget the hereafter. Then he says, مَيْدَانُكُمْ نُفُوسُكُمْ فَإِنْ انْتَصَرْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ كُنْتُمْ عَلَى غَيْرِهَا أَقْدَرُ وَإِنْ خُذُلْتُمْ فِيهَا كُنْتُمْ عَلَى غَيْرِهَا أَعْجَزُ فَجَرِّبُوا مَعَهَا الْكَفَاحِ أَوَّلًا. He says that the true battle is the battle you fight yourself, your nafs. If you can defeat your own nafs, you can defeat anybody. If you can't defeat you, you can't defeat anyone. I mentioned to you about Ghazali's quote of أيها الولد, where he mentions من عرف نفسه عرف ربه. Whoever understands and acknowledges and can see themselves and understand themselves, then truly they can understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who can understand the weaknesses and the strengths of their nafs. The Prophet ﷺ said, لَيْسَ الشَّدِيدُ بِالسُّرْعَةِ إِنَّمَا الشَّدِيدُ الَّذِي يَمْلِكُ نَفْسَهُ عِنْدَ الْغَضَبِ. That the strong one isn't the one who can defeat others in battle. Can you defeat yourself in battle? If you can defeat your own ego, you can defeat anyone. If you can't defeat you can't defeat anyone. Your maidanukum, your battle, nufusukum, is yourself. If you can defeat you can defeat anyone. And then he says, al-hawa ama. He says desires make a person blind. When a person is so deep into their desires, into their sins, to become blind from what is right and wrong. And finally, he says, an-nasu niyam fa-idha matu intabahu. He says people are asleep. When they die, that's when they wake up. He says people are asleep. Death wakes them up. I just don't drop gems. And you're getting, like, how people in Urdu, like, poetry sounds so good, and then, like, when I translate it, you're thinking, like, oh no, you didn't really get, you didn't really feel the ullu when I said ullu, right? Like, you didn't understand the depth of the meaning of it. Same way, like, for those who don't understand Arabic, you can't truly enjoy the beauty and the poetic nature of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Ali bin Abī Ṭālib radiallahu anhu was incredible. Next week we'll talk about Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah bin al-Jarrah radiallahu anhu, Talha bin Ubaidullah.